on Dateline Abuja, our Dr. Kingsley Okonoda, a consultant psychiatrist from University of Jos Teaching Hospital, Jos. Thank you so much for being part of us.
Thank you, Awa, and viewers at home.
And I also have Dr. Olusegun Shoyombo. He's a senior registrar in psychiatry, National Hospital, Abuja. Thank you for being part of Dateline Abuja.
Thank you very much. Good day, viewers.
And it's the World International Day of Happiness. So, well, I'll say happiness day to you. Okay, so today in commemoration with the UN's International Day of Happiness, we say happiness is a state of mind. Being happy is what is called happiness. And there's something called depression, which we're going to talk about today, which is the major cause of suicide in Nigeria or all over the world. Doctor, can you tell us what depression means?
Okay, so depression is a clinical condition. It's actually a medical condition. I need to make that clear because a lot of people say they are depressed just because they are sad. An event happens and people can get sad. But depression happens when there is a pervasive feeling of sadness that such that the person loses the zest for life. So there is usually things like low mood, loss of interest in pleasurable activities, there is weakness, and this affects every area of the person's life, such that the person will not be able to function adequately well. So there are a constellation of other symptoms which have to be present before you can say this person has clinical depression.
Okay.
So it is a medical condition.
It is a medical condition.
Yes.
Dr. Shoyombo, what is the main cause of unhappiness? Is it depression?
Well, like Dr. Konoda said, depression is a clinical condition. Now, people can be unhappy for several reasons, and it is absolutely normal to sometimes feel unhappy. You can be unhappy because you don't have money. You can be unhappy because your team has lost a match. You can be unhappy because you've been jilted by a lover. People can be unhappy for several reasons. That doesn't necessarily qualify them as being depressed.
Okay.
However, a low mood or unhappiness, as you call it, can be a significant part of a depressive illness. There are other things that will come with it. The person may feel like they don't have energy, they may not have interest in things they would normally be interested in, etc. So unhappiness can be part of a depressive illness.
How would you know how can you diagnose this illness? Because everybody, that means the word is being abused.
It's being abused.
If it's a sickness.
That is why you heard me say a pervasive feeling of sadness. Pervasive meaning that it occurs at different times, at different situations, not only as a result of a particular situation. So the person is unhappy at home, person is unhappy at work, person is unhappy in church. It has little to do with particular circumstance.
Oh.
You understand? So it's pervasive, and then it is there for at least two weeks. It could be even there for up to 6 months, 1 year, depending on if it's treated or not, or the severity, because sometimes people get into mild or moderate depression and the thing just goes on its own, just like sometimes people get into malaria, it goes on its own. But there are some that will not go until it is treated. So it's that pervasive sadness.
Okay.
And it's not only sadness, there is low energy. That's why many people will talk about malaria and typhoid. And I ask, is malaria and typhoid, is this Siamese twins? Are these Siamese twins? They are even caused by different categories of germs or whatever. Are you getting me now? So, but because they have low energy, if you have malaria, will you have strength?
No.
So they mix it up. The person doesn't have interest in what he used to like before. So they look at it, and because most doctors and people don't take psychiatric issues or mental health issues very seriously, they miss the diagnosis. Sometimes people have low appetite. They can even lose weight. They can lose concentration. All this you can still find in somebody that has physical illness. So it is mixed up with physical illness sometimes. But how do we know?
Yeah.
When we talk about low mood, low energy, loss of interest in pleasurable activities, these are what we call the core symptoms. There are other symptoms, like the constitutional symptoms, low appetite, the loss of weight sometimes, even loss of libido. People are not interested in sexual activities. But there are some that are more psychological, loss of concentration, this person is having feelings of guilt sometimes for no obvious reasons. The reasons are ridiculous, but the person has that feeling of guilt. The person sometimes have low self-esteem, as if he's not measuring up with other people. Are you getting me now? And then that low self-esteem can lead to feelings of being worthless, feelings of being hopeless. That's when things like looking at the future is bleak, and then they think they can start having thoughts of death, and then suicidal ideations.
That's coming. And
sometimes people go on to have suicidal attempt and even kill themselves. So you see, it's
can this be diagnosed? But must this fact you just called, or the symptoms you just called, are they tested? Like, if you go to the hospital, if you have some symptoms, like you said, malaria, typhoid, you run tests. But for you to say you have depression, do you undergo through tests, or it's just through the symptoms?
It is the symptoms and then what we call mental state examination. That's why I tell people you can't. Some people will go online and Google and say you can't become a doctor by Google. Are you getting me now? So there's what we call mental state examination, in which you look at the person, you interact with the person, and you're able to come up with facts to show that this person is depressed and not just being unhappy.
Okay, so Dr. Shoyombo, now being depressed, I don't understand. Today is a very happy day for everybody, but we need to shed more light on this particular issue. If, for example, somebody says, I'm depressed, I'm feeling guilty, I'm feeling no appetite, and all the symptoms you just called. Once in our culture, it's a spiritual house they'll take that person to. So should someone seek to go to a spiritual house, church or mosque or something, or they should seek the help or assistance of a medical doctor?
Well, like Dr. Konoda said, it is a medical condition. First and foremost, depression is a medical condition. The name was not coined from spiritual homes. You find it in medical textbooks. Part of the problem is that in our own society, the response to how are you is fine. Kedu, Odema, Yayajiki, Lafia, in almost any language. So we do not volunteer feelings of unhappiness. People are unlikely to go to hospital and say, I'm here because I'm unhappy. Rather, they will complain about several things. Oh, I feel weak, I feel tired, my leg is paining me, my neck is paining me. And then when they begin to have those other symptoms, feeling guilty, for instance, feeling like life is worthless, like they should kill themselves, people are more likely to interpret it in spiritual light than in medical light. But we are here to educate the public today to say it is a medical condition. Now, are we in competition with the spiritualists? Absolutely no. I tell patients all the time, your pastor, your imam can pray for you when you are not there. I can only treat you when you are with me. So why don't we use 2 stones to kill 1 bird? You come to the hospital, I give you treatment. Let your pastor and imam support us with prayer. Remember, even malaria, it's not everybody that is treated that gets well. So by all means, maybe prayer helps, and it can help in this condition too. But people should not suffer unnecessarily. And when people neglect medical care for spiritual homes, they suffer.
Okay, now let's talk about the high rates of suicide in Nigeria. According to WHO, Nigeria is ranking 10 in Africa, and that's huge. So what are the major? I know depression, of course, is one of it. What are the other causes of suicide?
All right, thank you very much. Like you said, depression is one of the major causes of suicide. There are other mental illnesses that can also lead to suicide. People that have what we call schizophrenia. Sometimes people have conditions in which they are hearing voices commanding them to go and kill themselves. Or some, by the virtue of the fact that they have given up because somebody is an high flyer before, got into that particular illness, and he now discovered that it's not functioning as he used to, and he's going down the economic ladder and those kind of things. Some of them will just decide to go and kill themselves. So things like that happen. Even things that we call bipolar affective disorder.
But of course, we know that the alarming rate of unemployment in Nigeria can actually make people sad or depressed, and this can also. Don't you think this can also increase or include one of the high risk of committing suicide?
Well, like I said, there are social factors, and all of these things can contribute to people committing suicide. The important thing is that conditions that lead to social isolation, conditions that lead to desolation and hopelessness can make people, decide to take their own lives. What do we mean by social isolation? Remember, in your introduction, you had mentioned that the theme for this year's World Happiness Day is Happier Together. Happier together. It means that we have responsibilities as individuals and we have collective responsibilities. Okay? So it is not enough for me to say, oh, nobody loves me, nobody looks for me. I have a responsibility to put myself in a place where people even know that I am there, where they can look for me. I have to make myself reachable, and then collectively we have a role to play. So you come to things like unemployment, and like I said, ability to cope with stress. Not every unemployed person will kill himself.
Yes.
Not every person who suffers severe economic downturn will kill himself. Some people will just pick up the pieces and try to build their lives back together. But some people do not have the resilience to cope with the stress. So when you talk about population level intervention to prevent suicide, creating employment will be a very important way of reducing suicide. While you do not have direct link, you know that economic downturn can make people commit suicide. So governments at all levels, federal, state, local governments, by creating employment, engaging young people, can reduce the impact of suicide. Working to build stronger family ties. That used to be our strong point. We are fast losing it. We are becoming increasingly westernized to the point where we don't know our cousins, our nephews, our nieces. We don't even know our neighbors. Okay? So working to build stronger family ties, stronger relationships, reducing rates of divorce. You see, all the social factors identified, once you can reduce them, you are directly, indirectly working to reduce rates.
Now, do you think the medical body is doing enough of creating awareness on these issues? But because this is life we're talking about, it's not politics. This is life that we are not really talking about. These factors you just called depression, unemployment, sadness, all these vices that are there that can actually make people take their lives. Do you think the medical body is not creating more awareness on this?
I can see that you are catching up with the passion for it.
Yeah.
We are creating awareness. It is part of the awareness that makes us to be here.
Yeah.
Like he said, we are attending a training, we have to interrupt it and to be here. We are creating awareness in the sense that we are virtually on radios, on TV stations, almost all the time to try and talk about this. But that's not enough. We are also working at policy levels. We are working, in fact, as we are coming, I told him how I've been here to come and see some people in terms of trying to get the mental health bill to be passed.
Good.
We are doing those things.
So you need to shed more light on that. Because that carries along.
Yes. Because the mental health bill, for example, when we off camera, we were talking about mental health and all that, and I was trying to correct some impressions you have. That is what the mental health bill seeks to do.
Okay.
To make mental health services to be available to all, to be accessible to all, and that people who suffer mental illnesses or who have mental health issues will not be stigmatized.
As being mad.
As being mad, because as it were.
Nice word. We call them mad.
As it were, people who have mental illnesses have problems with the brain. If somebody has problem with the heart, will you discriminate against the person?
No.
Because the brain is the one that affects behavior. And behavior is what we are talking about. So the mental health bill seeks to correct some of those things, to give them their rights, and then of course the right of the practitioners too, and all that. So that's what mental health bill is all around, is all about. So when we talk about trying to do enough, It is still not enough. We are also partnering with people like you in the media. We have trainings, people in the our religious leaders. We have conducted a number of trainings for people like that, and they go on to affect their congregations or their followers more positively.
Yeah.
Because you cannot really divorce us from our spirituality. But we are now using even the holy books, bringing out things that support mental health services and correct the negative beliefs that people have about those things. So we are also soliciting for cooperations, collaboration from people in the media, members of the public. If you have places that you need us to come and talk, to enlighten people and all that, we are always ready. We have our members all over the country.
Okay, Dr. Shoyambo, you know, this is something brilliant you just said. The bill will make a lot of sense. And now, if you have a problem, where do you run to? A dentist. If you have your eye problem, you run to your optician. If you have a feminine problem or something, you go to your gynae. But now, to go to a psychiatrist to see one is very difficult. Why are they not available, maybe in specialist hospitals like the National Hospital and etc.?
Okay, one is available in National Hospital. But before I answer your question, I would quickly like to delve into collaborating with the media.
Okay.
Because now I'm throwing the ball back at you to play.
Okay,
in addition to helping us to put it out there and create awareness, in terms of suicide, the media has a critical role to play. We call it responsible reportage. You don't go on and report the nitty-gritty of details of how somebody has committed suicide. A few days ago, there was an attack in New Zealand, and the person live streamed the attack. And the first response was to make sure that Facebook pulled down that video, and all other social media outlets were pulling down the video. So in the same way, when somebody commits suicide, we don't want the media to report it in too graphic details. Where can you find a psychiatrist? In all countries of this, in all states in Nigeria, you'll find psychiatrists. We are still not enough. We are working to develop manpower and for people to be spread. Right now, people are concentrated in the city centers, the teaching hospitals, but some states.
Why is that?
Well, it's preference. You know, when you have shortage of manpower, then people can pick where they prefer to be. Would you rather live in the village or would you rather live in town? But I think as we build on that, I'm sure Dr. Kunda will make a few comments on that. But you know, it's basically due to shortage of manpower, number one. Number two is that there needs to be more commitment on the part of government, especially at the state levels, to staff the general hospitals with psychiatrists. Because in the mental health bill it was talking about, part of what we seek to achieve is to provide mental health services even at the primary health care level. Now, it is not for every condition that you really, like you said, a dentist, gynecologist, it's not for every mental health condition that you really need to see a psychiatrist in the first instance. If anybody has any problem at all that they consider medical, the first things first, see a doctor. You may not know what that specialty is, but that doctor will know the right place to send you to.
Okay.
Government commitment is very important. Like you said, we don't have enough psychiatrists. However, even the psychiatrists that are qualifying are not getting spaces to work. Because for one reason or the other, like he said, I was talking about it as we were coming. In the state where I practice, there's no single psychiatrist in the employment of that state. Now, I'm not talking about the teaching hospital that is by the federal government. Why? Because they always downplay it. You understand? They talk about madness, we don't have mad people here, you know, those kind of things. However, every specialist hospital should have a psychiatrist.
Yes.
Every general hospital should have it. There's no health without mental health. And even in the primary health care, mental health is a component of primary health care. And if you talk about Nigeria having a high suicide rate, it is because people are not picking those things at those levels. The teaching hospital is like the tip of the iceberg for any condition. Most people will never get to the teaching hospital. So, and if you now have psychiatrists only in the teaching hospitals, what does that tell about our health care services? bad.
Yeah.
So government needs to do more.
Okay, coming back to our theme, happier together, focusing on what we have in common rather than what separates us. Do you have a final statement on that?
My final say is that we should think more about our humanity. A lot of things we have let them separate us. We talk about our religion. I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim. What about even the person that doesn't even believe God? Should I, because of that, lose the sense of the fact that he's a human being? We talk about our tribes, we talk about all those things. Interestingly, once we go skin deep, all of us are the same.
Yeah.
Either you are white or black or yellow. So we should think more about the things that unite us. For any set of people, no matter all the differences, there are basic things that unite us as human beings. We should think more of those things, concentrate more on those things. Interestingly, what we focus on grows. Is the rule of life. So if we focus on those differences, you probably have had misunderstanding with one or two people. After 2-3 days, you wonder, why were we even fighting?
Yes.
It was not worth it. In the same vein, those are our differences. We have exaggerated them too much. We should come together. We should look at the positives and celebrate those positives.
Well, thank you. It's beautiful. Do you have something to contribute to that?
Well, my final take would be that, in treating people with mental health disorders, sometimes we use drugs, but we also do a lot of talking. We call it psychotherapy, and we try to change how people think, how they behave. Okay, so what I have to say is that people have to learn to shift away from the negatives and focus on the positive aspects of life. We have just come out of our general elections. Supplementary elections will hold in a few states in a few days' time. Elections have come and gone. Our humanity remains.
Yeah.
People should now shed the toga of party, who you supported, who you did not support. If you lost election or the person you supported lost election, it's not the end of life. You live to fight another day.
Oh, thank you so much. I've been talking to Dr. Kingsley Okonoda, a consultant psychiatrist from University of Jos Teaching Hospital, all the way from Plateau State. Thank you so much for being part of Dateline Abuja. And Dr. Olusegun Shoyombo is senior registrar in psychiatry at the National Hospital here in Abuja. Thank you so much for being part of Dateline Abuja. And happy Internationals, happy day, happiness day again. Okay, the program is Dateline Abuja. Stay tuned. I'll be right back.